Dr. Amina Reyes woke before sunrise, as she had every morning since the first tremors of panic rippled through the world. In the dim glow of battery-powered lanterns, the desert dawn painted the horizon in muted lavenders and oranges, an ironic serenity against the nightmare to come. She tightened the straps on her utility vest, checking the weight of signal jammers, data drives, and her worn plasma-resistant goggles. Every piece of equipment was a lifeline. Failure meant the end of everything she'd fought to preserve. Below her, the sands of Atacama Bunker, once an inconspicuous research outpost, hummed with activity. Engineers recalibrated the borehole lasers that normally probed Earth's mantle. Now they were being adapted into makeshift defense turrets. A team of exobiologists monitored a quarantined spray of alien spores captured during the first skirmish. In Siberia, and in the heart of the complex, the Prometheus control room glowed with hollow schematics of the experimental orbital laser array. At 05:17 local time on March 28, 2042, the world changed. Across every feed, civilian drones over Hong Kong, weather satellites above the Sahara, private telescopes in amateur observatories, something dark and glinting pierced the sky. Thousands of sleek obsidian torpedoes hurtled down through the mesosphere, each trailing a faint corona of violet energy. The broadcast cut to static as one vessel descended over New Delhi. Moments later, the first beam lanced downward, a searing spear of pure energy that carved clean through concrete and steel. The camera feed reactivated just long enough to capture frozen frames of streets crumbling into molten slag. Then darkness. Amina's heart slammed in her chest. "They've begun," she whispered, dialing into the global comm channel. Hundreds of other voices, military commanders, civilian volunteers, rogue scientists, crammed the audio feed in frantic relief and horror. "Prometheus, report," barked General Hiroshi Takeda, his voice ragged with exhaustion. He'd spent the last week coordinating the project from a hidden carrier in the Pacific. Amina keyed her mic. "All systems nominal, sir. We're 80% complete on the adaptive targeting. A grid requires another 12 hours of calibration." She glanced at the vessel arcing above the ocean on her holomap. "They're converging on every continent at once." Below the bunker, seismic sensors trembled as the invaders' ground-piercing scouts bored through the crust, seeking subterranean strongholds or mineral veins. Nobody knew which. Far above, the sky burned red as dozens of alien warships formed. A looming constellation. The clouds caught the glow, turning dawn into something out of a nightmare painting. Amina closed her eyes for a moment, recalling why she'd joined this mad effort. Years ago, she'd been content studying the subtle shifts of Earth's core. But when the first reports of alien probes arrived, harmless, curious drones harvesting samples from the Gulf of Mexico, she'd volunteered to help decipher their technology. Nobody expected an outright invasion. "Dr. Reyes," came a soft voice behind her. Malik Patel, the young engineer whose laughter once filled the labs, now stared through a viewport at the advancing armada. "We've finished reverse engineering the plasma separators. The adapted cannons should fire within 3 minutes. Amina pressed her palm to his shoulder. "Good work, Malik. Ready the test shot." They hustled to the rooftop platform, where the jury-rigged turret, a fusion of Earth-made coil guns and alien power cells, sat pointed at the closest cruiser. General Takeda authorized the engagement. Amina's finger hovered over the activation switch. Below them, world leaders and civilian coalitions watched in horror and hope as the countdown began. If this failed, there would be nothing left to fight with. 3, 2, 1. A low hum rippled through the turret. Electric arcs leapt along the barrel. Then came the blinding flash, a bolt of azure energy so bright it silenced the Dawn. It struck the alien hull with a thunderous crack. For a moment nothing happened. Then the cruiser's surface bulged, ruptured, and imploded in a silent fireball that lit the clouds from within. Cheers erupted over comlinks, but Amina scarcely heard them. She knew this was only the opening gambit. The red sky would not revert to peaceful dawn easily. Yet, as the smouldering wreckage drifted away, she felt a renewed spark of defiance. Humanity's war had begun, and somewhere in the wreckage of that first strike lay the key to turning the tide. The world held its breath for 4 endless days. Beneath the cracked shell of Earth, survivors huddled in subway tunnels and desert bunkers. Above, the broken fragments of alien drones drifted ghost-like against the scarlet sky. Every radar sweep monitored the invader's brooding armada as it regrouped in geosynchronous orbit, waiting. In the cavernous launch bay of the Ares station, Captain Elena Korsakov watched the final countdown on a hollow readout. Her gaunt face was lit by the pale glow of Prometheus's crystalline capacitor banks. Engineers in reinforced suits strapped the 40-meter array to its heavy-lift boosters. Outside, thunderstorms rumbled across the Pacific, as if the planet itself raged at the fate unfolding above. At 21:47 UTC on April 3, 2042, the silence shattered. Ignition thrummed through Ares's steel bones as the boosters ignited in a fiery bloom. The Prometheus array rose, trailing a comet's tail of superheated exhaust. In seconds, it shot free of the atmosphere, piercing the clouds and vanishing. Into the stars. Back on Earth, a dozen satellite relays clicked into alignment. Amina Reyes, monitoring from New Mexico, keyed her console. "Target locked," she called, firing in 3, 2, 1. A thin filament of light arced across the sky, brighter than the sun, sharper than any weapon mankind had ever forged. It struck the lead alien cruiser like a lance of pure wrath. The ship ruptured in a storm of violet flame, its hull peeling away in molten ribbons. Shockwaves rippled through the remaining fleet, sending vessels tumbling into chaotic spirals. Cheers exploded over every open channel. Children danced in ruined streets. Pilots wept at their cockpits. At last, humanity had struck back, and it hurt. But elation turned to stone in the hours that followed. Deep space sensors detected the flagship's fragments coalescing, nanite by nanite, stitching the vessel back together. Satellite images showed the rebel cruisers, still intact, igniting their thrusters in a mass retreat. On the deck of the United Earth Coalition's command cruiser, Admiral Sophia Monroe confronted President Korsakov. "They're heading for Mars," the Admiral reported, voice grim. "Once they establish a foothold there, they'll be untouchable. Mars's gravity well is shallow. Their warp drives will have free run of the inner system." President Korsakov leaned over the star map, blood-red arcs tracing the alien flight path. "If they build shipyards on the Martian plains, they'll return in force. We can't let that happen." She turned to the assembled officers. "Order the chase. Prepare the particle drive modules. We follow them into the void." A hush fell over the room. Chasing an enemy beyond Earth's protection was unthinkable. Millions of kilometers of hostile vacuum, limited supplies, unknown perils. Yet the alternative was worse. In shipyards around the globe, frontier engineers worked through the night, grafting Prometheus's laser cores into frigate-class warships. Every hull was fitted with electromagnetic pulse projectors and reactive armor forged from salvaged alien alloys. Crews volunteered in droves, trading fear for purpose. As the newly christened Vanguard fleet slipped past lunar orbit on April 12th, Earth survivors watched them go through hacked public feeds. "Good luck," whispered a barefoot child on a rooftop in Berlin, waving at the stars. "Come back soon." And so began the most dangerous chase in humanity's history. Pursuit across the silent Gulf, racing against time to deny the invaders a foothold on the red planet. The counterstrike. had won the first battle, but the war was only just beginning. For 19 days, the Vanguard fleet hurtled through empty space, leaving Earth's pale blue glow ever smaller against the black. In the cramped corridors of the USS Ares, Lieutenant Commander Amina Reyes found herself moving like a ghost, half scientist, half soldier, adjusting calibrations on the retrofitted laser turrets between shifts in the mess hall. Outside the viewport, the remains of the alien scouts drifted like cosmic ash, silent monuments to the fury of battle. Life aboard ship was a delicate balance of routine and tension. Engineers scrubbed fusion residues from emergency repairs. Medics treated space adaptation sickness. Pilots practiced dogfights in hollow simulators. Every wristwatch ticked down supplies of water and oxygen. Every sonar ping was a question. Would it bring an enemy raid or echo only the pulse of the void? Then, on the 22nd day, the warning klaxon shattered the uneasy calm. Alien plasma bolts flared into view, an ambush from raiding corvettes using hit-and-run tactics to thin the fleet's ranks. Frigates shuddered under fire. Reactive armor panels peeled away. In the combat ledge, Amina keyed her comms. All batteries counterfire pattern Alpha 3. Keep them from flanking the Ares. The turrets responded in unison, lancing back, with searing beams that cut through ionized swirls. Amid the chaos, Chief Engineer Malik Patel made a startling discovery. Poring over propagation data from the Prometheus modules, he realized the invaders' fusion cores were connected in a cascade, optimized for speed but catastrophically vulnerable if one core was forced into critical overload. If triggered, the chain reaction would annihilate an entire vessel. That night, Amina and Malik huddled over a holomap of the flagship's estimated schematics. "We can't fire our main guns at that range," she said. "But what if we deliver a payload inside their reactor?" Malik's eyes gleamed. "I've already designed a probe, using one of our spare core modulators and a payload of eco-thermite charges. We ram it at full thrust, set to detonate on impact." The plan was desperate. Launch the probe under the escort of 2 corvettes. Draw the enemy's fire away from the Ares and guide the drone in through the reactor's aft conduits. Victory meant obliteration of the flagship, and with it, the chain of command would collapse. Failure meant total annihilation of the assault squadron. On the 25th day, the fleet approached the blood-streaked disk of Mars looming ahead. Sensors lit up with the unmistakable profile of the flagship, its obsidian hull scarring the dim Martian sky. As the corvettes engaged in a feint, Amina gave the order. "Launch the deliverance probe." The drone burst free, white-hot from its ignition flares charging through the vortex of plasma fire. In the command deck, every breath caught as the guidance feed cut to static, then flickered back with a final message scrolling across the feed for Earth, and, just like that, the probe disappeared into the reactor's maw. Silence followed, far more terrifying than any salvo. The fleet held its breath, waiting for the inevitable retaliation, or the explosion that would end the chase once and for all. The void fell silent. For a heartbeat that stretched across millions of kilometers, nothing moved but the drifting wreckage of obsidian hulls and shattered fusion cores. Then, like a breath expelled in relief, the flagship's reactor erupted. In a blinding column of emerald flame, the shockwave rippled outward, twisting and fracturing every vessel in the alien fleet. One by one, corvettes and scouts disintegrated in cascading implosions that scattered debris like meteor showers against the dark canvas of space. On the bridge of the USS Ares, alarms shrieked as screens flashed red with overload warnings. Commander Amina Reyes and Captain Elena Korsakov exchanged a look of stunned disbelief before cheers erupted through the comm lines. Around them, human ships rocked from the passing shockwave, but none were lost. Engineers raced to secure coolant leaks. In the Prometheus modules, pilots hailed each other with raw, trembling voices. For the first time since the invasion began, victory felt real. Mars loomed ahead, its crimson plains untouched by enemy boots. In the aftermath of the blast, the Vanguard fleet slowed to survey the carnage. Twisted alien wreckage floated among Jupiter-bound trajectories, a mute testament to the cost of hubris. Malik Patel, eyes glued to his console, confirmed what everyone already knew. Not a single invader would ever breach the Martian atmosphere. "It's over," he whispered, voice thick. "They're gone." As the fleet turned its prow back toward Earth, messages flooded in from every outpost. Coastal cities rebuilding seawalls, subterranean farms reopening their hydroponics, children distributing salvaged seeds in bombed-out parks. Humanity, fractured by fear and desperation, was knitting itself together anew. On the communications grid, President Korsakov's voice carried warmth and resolve. "Let this victory remind us that our greatest strength lies not in our weapons, but in our unity. We defended our home against impossible odds, and now we rebuild it together." Days later, as the USS Ares coasted into geosynchronous orbit above Earth, Amina stood at the viewport with Malik at her side. Below them, continents bloomed with the first green shoots of recovery. In that quiet moment, she remembered the red dawn in New Mexico when the invasion began, and the final flash of the Deliverance probe that saved them all. The war had ended before Mars could ever taste alien footsteps, but its legacy would endure. A promise that no matter the darkness, beyond the stars, humanity would always fight together to keep its home safe.